Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.
Hello, and welcome to Champions Psychology, a show with the goal of openly talking about mental health and gaming presented by Codename Entertainment and TakeThis.org. I'm one of your hosts, Treavor Bettis, and joining me each week is an amazing person who is, and I'm not framed at all, despite the fact that I did it. It wouldn't be this show if it wasn't like that. What is happening? There we go.
Why is it? Everybody can see my nose real well.
I clicked the wrong thing. It wouldn't be us if that didn't happen. But again, I'm joined by an amazing person who is
Mitra Jordan. Hi, I'm a registered clinical counselor working out of Victoria, British Columbia, and it is so great to be here once again.
We back.
It has been ages. We are back. We're back. We're not resting on our laurels in the least. Hello?
I didn't know we were doing the joke. I didn't have my hat ready.
It's weird. Not much of it is showing up, but there we go.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Perfect.
Hello. Yes. Okay. This can now be taken off because it will fall off my head. Yes, must resize top hat in future.
I just the only thing that I have ready to go on me are masks. Just in my pocket, ready to go at all times.
I don't think you need them today.
Not
FYI.
today. Not today. Well, hello, everyone. It's been a little bit, as the code says. Sorry for the wait, but we had a lot going on, and as you may well notice, there are two of us, and that is because Dr. B, they had a kid. I don't know if y'all saw this on social media. They had a kid. It's an adorable little child, and so he's very busy with just being parents, and so
he's on paternity leave.
Yes. So we are gonna continue doing this show, but most of the episodes are going to be just Mitra and I, but we are hoping to have some guests on throughout the season, so we will see what happens. Man, I don't even know how to properly segue into the show anymore. It's been so long.
Well, hey Trevor.
Huh?
Hey Trevor.
What?
How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb, Trevor?
How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb?
How many? Trevor, Only one, but the light bulb has to want to change.
Well, all right. Well, speaking of changes, also, I guess I should probably say, because the Steam promo is going on right now, this is a show that is in the middle of shows about Idle Champions, but we're gonna pop in here to talk to you about mental health, because surprise, mental health is important. So if you have any questions about the topic that we're gonna be talking about, which is, as you can see above me, resolutions revisited. As we're talking, you can put them into the chat with question : and then your question, and our awesome mods, Gabe and Mars, will grab them, put in a little text doc, and we'll talk about them at the end of the show. Yeah, so resolutions. We talked about this once a while ago, because somehow we've been doing this show for so long that we're 9 seasons in.
It's amazing. We're 9 seasons in.
Yeah.
And we tackled resolutions, I think, somewhere in our first season, so it's been a little while since we talked about them. And we figured that this is a great time to bring them up, because at this point we're into April and we're just wondering how everyone is doing with their resolutions, and we'll share a little about ours. And I just think there's all different kinds of resolutions. We can set resolutions for things we really love and want to do more of. One of my resolutions for this year was to do some more sewing because it's a hobby I really enjoy. I have managed to do that, but more on that later. And then of course there's the resolutions about things we want to change, not just do more, but change about ourselves. Habits we might want to shift, or behavior patterns we don't love, and or just kind of, we're determined to become stronger. I see an awful lot of treadmills, ellipticals, weights of all sorts, kettlebells,
yoga mats, yoga bricks, which I didn't even know was a thing.
Yoga blankets. I had.
Is there a yoga blanket? Is that a thing?
There are many yoga blankets. Yoga blankets.
Don't mind me. You keep talking. I'm looking up yoga blankets now.
Wait. Anyway, I see all of these on Facebook Marketplace, and and some people have smartly quit doing resolutions for no more resolutions, which is probably a smart resolution. But in any case, for those of us who are struggling with concepts of change and how to actually make some changes happen, should you want to do that, that's what today is about.
Yeah. Yeah, and someone said in the chat, Gauntlet Blade said, wait, were we supposed to actually do resolutions? I quit making those back in college. And here's the thing, to be fair, like for the most part, so did I. But that doesn't mean that kind of like as a whole, people don't do that. I mean, there's a reason why the first week of January is the most busy week for gyms of all year. It is regardless of if you're calling it a resolution, it's going into the new year wanting to change in some way. And so like while we're calling it resolutions, it doesn't necessarily mean the whole like I've written down in my notebook these New Year's resolutions that I'm going to do. There's this idea of changing, and I think you put it best yesterday in our prep meeting for this was with a blank slate.
Yeah.
So what is it about a blank slate that gets us to want to do a change?
Yeah, so I think it's this idea of starting afresh, new light, new leaf, planning for something. And also, I think it kind of feels safe when we put something off to a different time as well.
I don't know anything about that. What are you talking about?
No, starting Monday. No more cookies. I don't know.
I didn't say which Monday.
Dry January.
Of 2026.
Exactly. But the reality is that sometimes there's this idea of being a new person or seeing ourselves in a different light, and therefore having a specific time or a future time attached to that. Similar to the idea of writing in a journal and maybe having a beautiful journal that is quote unquote too nice to write in, right? Which really, it's yours. It's there for you. You
Mitra,
aren't in service of the journal.
In the first episode back.
Right. So, and sometimes when people start writing in such beautiful copybooks, if they make a mistake, they want to rip it out, or they want to start over, or it's ruined now, right? So there's also, along with blank slate, there's this idea of 0 days or no more 0 days. There's this idea of streaks where we kind of have to keep up what we begin. There is a great deal of pressure that we put on ourselves with all of this. If you deserve a beautiful journal, then you most certainly deserve to write in it however it is you write, or draw, or paint, or scribble, or scribble, or squiggle. Anyway, any of them. Because we both have ADHD. We're beautiful at staying on track.
Oh, absolutely. No tangents here.
Case, let's talk about making plans and the idea of starting afresh. And I think there's a few times of year where we kind of start to do this. For many of us, it's September, the beginning of the school year. or I guess August for many of you in the US, the beginning of the school year, there is, of course, one's birthday. I used to associate a lot of needed changes with my birthday. It's like my own personal day of reckoning, which, by the way, made the whole birthday thing a lot less pleasant in some ways.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's like, remember that song that goes something like, so this is Christmas, what have you done? I'd be like, so this is my birthday. What have I done? What have I done
my gosh.
The fortifying sip of tea for this.
I'll be honest, I hadn't heard the birthday one before. I think the only time that I've ever really done the, like, I'm setting down, like, okay, change from here, is the New Year's thing. Like, and there's, like, diets and stuff has been different, but, like, when it's like, I have a list of changes I'm going to make, it's always been like, I'll save those for the new year. I think that might be because my birthday's right in the middle of the year, and that just feels like a weird time to start things.
I think that's really interesting, the idea of I'll save it for the new year.
Oh, I've done that. Yeah, I am skilled in the art of procrastination.
The year of impending doom, then.
Yeah, no, that is kind of what that does turn into.
To do to yourself.
The year of impending disappointment.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about good old Prochaska and his stages of change briefly. So when we think about change, we think about the different levels of awareness first that we bring to whatever it is we want to change. So the first one would be pre-contemplation, where we haven't even really thought about actually wanting to change. Sometimes it's someone else who points a thing out to us that usually is something we already know, like, did you know if you keep smoking, there's a chance you'll get cancer? It's like right on the box, people. I don't think I need someone telling me. I'm not an idiot, right? But so there's a lot of things, there's habits and things that we might do where we think, yeah, I guess this isn't good for possibly me in the future, right? But present me is busy coping with life and frankly needs their smokes or whatever, insert habit of choice that you think isn't super healthy, but that you do. And I think the challenge there is it hasn't hit you personally yet, or maybe hard enough, or maybe you haven't, so then you move from this, like, this really has nothing to do with me and I'm fine, also immortal, to the next stage, which is contemplation, which goes something like, maybe this isn't such a great habit, or maybe I'm seeing the cost of this habit in some ways. Maybe it's kicked off some asthma. If it's, I do apologize for using smoking here, but I'm just trying to stick with one idea of one possibility. So please, so, we just kind of start to see there is potentially a consequence. And potentially maybe we do want to change this thing we're doing, or we're certainly telling ourselves, I could stop anytime, or I could start going to the gym. Or, if I had the right dumbbells, then, I'd be working out.
Mm-hmm.
So we might be starting to think about what it is we want to do and how we would like to change. And this is the stage where we kind of might start to say things like, in the new year, it looks like our screen went black.
Oh, did it?
I kind of wonder about that. Yeah.
No, seems fine on my end. Chat, if anything's going wrong,
okay, that's good.
Let me know.
Tell us, chat. Yeah, I sort of have a link set up here that just decided to. Oh, no, it's me. My apologies. It is me, which is not atypical. Anyway, so we decide, like, okay, maybe change is a thing we want to try. We usually skip from contemplation right into action. And that's our first mistake. It may not be our first mistake, but it's definitely not it's not the helpful way to go about it. It often leads to failure because we go from thinking about something to like, great, I'm going to get some gym equipment now.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to try, and I might invest quite expensively in this. Maybe I get a book or two, but maybe I also buy a Peloton or something like that. Do you guys remember Pelotons? They were real big,
God.
right around. right around the time of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Suddenly. Yeah. I seem to remember something called Mirror as well. There were a few different sorts of fitness related, hey, you have to work alone from home sorts of things. Anyway.
Mine was Ring,
So,
the Ring Fit, the Nintendo one. I was
oh,
like, oh
I
yeah,
remember the
that'll
Ring
do
Fit.
it. That'll be great.
That'll do it. That's right.
No.
That's right. And so then this stuff starts to collect dust. And I think we talk a little bit about this idea of I'm going to invest in myself, usually with this whatever change thing we do. So we get the gym membership, or we buy the equipment, or we get a few books, or we take a course, or we get a coach. Now, some of these are more effective than others.
Yeah.
I think when we bring other people in, that's actually one of the success strategies we're going to talk about. Sometimes we'll tell people about these fantastic things we're going to do before we actually start doing them. And this might actually backfire, because instead of feeling supported, we now feel we have to be accountable to the person. And if we're not doing it, we can then move into feeling a sense of failure.
I had someone tell me once to do an accountability thing like that, but on Twitter, where it was like, oh yeah, post that you're going to do this thing. And so that all those people know that you're going to do it. And I'm like, no, I barely like doing that with my friend group because I will disappoint them. Yeah, that sort of thing is, you have to know yourself and know that sort of thing works for you before trying it, really. Like, I feel like you should really start small if you're going to do the accountability thing. Tell one person. Tell one person, I'm going to do this and see how that goes.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons we go from this kind of contemplation to action is because that's what we see in our culture, is like somebody's thinking about it, or somebody has a sort of inspirational moment and they change their life, and there's, cue the training montage, and then, they emerge a different person. And often in self-help kind of stuff, I'm looking at you, Tony Robbins, it's often like, I used to be this kind of person. He's old school now, but essentially the story is, I used to be, I don't know, unsuccessful or overweight, as if those two things are connected in some way, which they are really not. Or I used to be, at my wit's end and broke, and now look at me, right? So there's this kind of like, you're already considering yourself a success. You're peddling your program, if you will, often. And you're speaking to a room full of failures in some way, because often it hasn't in the past been particularly respectful. I think the dialogue is changing, but it used to be kind of like, I was like you and now I'm like me, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is really problematic.
Oh yeah.
Because we need to feel good about our capacity in order to make change, as opposed to despairing and demoralized. We need to be able to remember some successes, perhaps in different areas of our life, in order to be able to make change. And so we need to go from contemplation to planning.
Yes.
Exactly.
Actually, like, look into the stuff and know what you're gonna do and make a plan.
Exactly. Prochaska calls it preparation. I can't speak today, but too bad about the
show.
Okay. But anyway,
we're only on a stream. It's fine.
Yeah. So in order to prepare, you also need to know yourself. You need to know what gets in the way for you. What are potential stumbling blocks? And actually, I think you had a little bit of a story about the gym around this.
Oh yeah, like as far as like making a plan goes, is also being able to adapt, because I could make a plan of like, okay, you know what? I got this gym membership. We'll get more into that later. I'm gonna go these days, and that works for a certain number of weeks, and then it doesn't. And so like, I think as far as like preparation is like understanding that it's that while you are making a plan, it's not a set in stone thing. It is something that has to be able to adjust and be flexible. I mean, Lurking Writer even said in the chat, but no plan survives first contact with reality, and it's very true.
Exactly.
Like that's the nature of things. Because like, you know, I could be like, I'm gonna go to the gym Thursday mornings, and then, you know, it's like, hey, we actually need to have this team meeting earlier on Thursdays now. It's like, okay, well, I that's the time that I was gonna go. What do I do now? And trying to plan in that moment to adjust things to it, because, you know, it's very easy to just be like, oh, I'll figure that out next week or something like that. And that is how I know for myself. That is how I just never end up going again. It's that one deviation. It's like, oh, it doesn't work anymore. That's the day that I was comfortable doing it, and whatever.
Yeah. So preparation allows us to maybe start grounding our plans in reality. Who are we really, and what sorts of things will we actually do? And also, if we are looking at sort of fitness and things like that, there's a lot of dialogue around no pain, no gain, discipline,
My back has a different
willpower.
story to that.
Exactly. And I don't think that these ideas are necessarily at all helpful.
No. Well,
and
like for this year, I've started doing daily walks during the week, and I'm not pushing myself. I'm not, you know, like, there's still that from high school where it's just like, you gotta do a mile, and I'm not like, I have a little route that I take around my house that's very easy. It's very simple. It's enough that I can be like, you know what, I'm just gonna get out of the house for a little bit and have a nice walk. It's still way more, considering I'm doing it at almost every day. It's still way more than I was doing before, where I just wasn't. And I think that's something that that needs to be taken into consideration, is that while there are people who are like, oh, you got to push yourself and everything like that, the fact that you're doing something towards, and this doesn't even have to be like exercise or anything, as long as you're doing something towards that, that's more than you were doing before. That's more than you're doing if you're not doing it. I mean, heck, going over to my other podcast with B-Day, one of the things that he says for writing is like, the worst thing you write is better than the best thing you don't.
Yes.
As long as you are doing something towards it, you're doing it.
Yes, which brings us to the question of flexibility and inflexibility. You know, the more we kind of decide that we have to be disciplined and do something the same way or at the same time, the harder it is. There is, in terms of habit forming, something important about doing things in the same way at the same time. But the bigger piece is to continually make room for something.
Mm-hmm.
So when you first start implementing a new habit or idea, to be too rigid about when or how you're going to do it is going to set you up for failure. If you can say to yourself, I value being able to go for a walk every day, and I'm going to make room for it. If you then look at your schedule and decide, okay, today it's best to go in the morning, tomorrow it works better in the afternoon, that's better planning.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Or if you haven't been able to, then you forgive yourself and get back on the change that you want to do the next day. I think one of the changes I made some time ago was I decided I wanted to have less sugar. And so I knew I would fail if I cut sugar out of my tea, because I like my tea the way I like my tea. And that's a hill I'm going to die on, basically. So, you know, forever the Earl Grey. So for me, it made more sense to cut down on sugar, and first actually to add a substitute along with the sugar that I was using. And so I found that I could sort of start to slowly have less sugar in my tea. And then I left it at that. I actually use a sugar substitute in my tea, and I've never tried to actually stop using sugar, but it did allow me to kind of change my palate a bit over time.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say over the course of a year, my palate, which had never been, I will say I'm more chips than cookies, to be fair. So I also chose a fairly easy challenge for me, in terms of if we're kind of talking, we want to change the way we eat or we want to eat more healthfully. I just wanted to really kind of eliminate some of that additional attachment to sweetness.
Yeah.
To be able to just go on.
Well, mine was sodas. I was like, I don't want to be drinking soda anymore. That did lead to way too many LaCroix being in my house. But you know what? It's not soda.
Exactly. And I think that's it, right? I think the idea of like all or nothing thinking is something we really need to kind of keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
All or nothing thinking is where no sugar at all in my diet ever again. You are setting yourself up for failure if you have something that you like that has maybe consoled you sometimes, depending on your relationship with food, and also with treats. That is a way to celebrate sometimes, that is a part of your life. And say your birthday, does no sugar mean you're not having a birthday cake this year? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you just kind of broaden out that perspective when you're thinking about preparation, really, does this thing really work for who you are, for your lifestyle, for your schedule, for your capacity at this point? Like, I'm the first to encourage people to change, but for instance, if I have a client who's lost a parent, or someone really important to them, or is going through some kind of grief process, that's probably not the time to quit smoking.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's about thinking about, like, what is it that you use? Why are you using it?
Yeah.
What does it bring you? And what can you add to your life?
Yeah.
Before you take away, what can you add? So if you want to quit smoking, what are you going to do instead? If you want to add a walk, how are you going to do that? And is it replacing something, or because it's best if it's an additive? If you want to get physically more fit, say, or you just want to get a bit more exercise, you don't have to go to the gym.
No.
Is it possible to pick up a sport with a friend, or do, I don't know, badminton once a week or something? You know, like, what can you add to your life that's also going to bring joy?
Yeah. No, I definitely think keeping in mind of like what you have going on with yourself is a good thing too, where it's like, because like I know there's been times where I've been like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna do this diet next month, and then something, you know, comes up that's really bad, that is, you know, shifting everything going on. Okay, you know what, like I'm not gonna do it this month because I don't need to be constantly worrying about this as well as, you know, everything I have going on right now that has just popped up.
Exactly.
Being real with yourself.
Exactly. And if we're thinking about healthy eating, I would consider how to think about adding rather than depriving. If you're wanting to change how you eat, instead of thinking about what you're cutting out, is there something you can add? Can you add a bit of fruit or veg every day? Could you have a salad 3 times a week, say?
Yeah.
Right? So that way, even if something comes up, you're less likely to be thrown completely off course.
Yeah.
And you're more likely to forgive yourself if you're not doing it perfectly, because guess what? Perfect is indeed the enemy of the good. 100%.
Perfect is the enemy. That's our next shirt.
Right. If you want to change, we go from preparation into action. Let's think about the additive rather than the subtractive. And also, more important, what is your compelling reason? What is your why? Because if you don't have a reason that's compelling to you, you probably won't stick to it. And that's okay. If you find you're not sticking to it, that may be you're working harder against yourself. how can you work for yourself and with yourself? If this isn't your compelling reason, is there a compelling reason? Often people will make changes, particularly to their health for their kids. I've heard a lot of people say, well, I've had a baby and I want to take care of myself. Or I have kids who are about to have kids and I want to be able to raise my grandkids above my head. These are fantastic goals because they're very specific, they're very small, they're very measurable.
Yeah.
Which is things we look for. And they're usually time bound in the sense that we have these grandkids who are infants. Presumably it's not going to work to want to lift them above your head when they're 12.
Yeah.
You know? So we're thinking about like, what can I do now to make a small change to feel better? It does. So the reason can be compelling, but it can also be smaller. I'd like to sew more, or I'd like to change my palate a little bit so it's not so hooked on sweet. You know, start small.
That you made me think of a joke that I used to say when I was younger that I got from a Kevin James stand up in like 2000. That's how I'm dating myself there. It was like, you know, most people have like a numbered weight goal. My goal is I just don't want my stomach to jiggle when I brush my teeth, and that was my weight goal.
I love that.
Yeah,
I really do, because it's really specific and it's simple and it's very tied to your bodily experience.
Yeah.
Every day. And so when we have inbuilt reminders, embodied reminders, if you will, it does become a lot easier. Yeah.
Yeah, the compelling reasons for things, like you brought that up yesterday in our prep meeting, and that was something that like I don't know if when I'm setting these goals, like I'm really thinking about other than like kind of that thing of like, oh well, I need to do this. Like when it comes to like going to the gym or anything like that, it was just like, oh well, I need to be doing this, and I don't setting without kind of setting a realistic goal. It's always fun when your computer freezes in the middle of a stream. I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. We'll see what happens. So yeah, apologies for that. I'm not sure where we were because
that's okay.
happened.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I do know.
Okay.
So we were talking about preparation and actions and your compelling reason.
That's right.
For change. And being able to have a compelling reason is really important for change to stick. Because it's not just about willpower and discipline. In fact, it's least of all about those things. So in fact, the stronger your compelling reason and the more you're able to eliminate the barriers to change, the likelier you are to do things. So I was watching someone talk about how they had a value of going to the gym in the morning, like it was important to them. And so they would actually sleep in their gym clothes.
Oh, okay.
So that they could just get up and go the very next morning. Luckily, their gym clothes were, I would hope, comfortable. Okay, I could not do that one. But I'm just saying that was eliminating the barrier of having to get up, find the gym clothes, get dressed. If we can eliminate the barriers that involve thinking or changing our minds, climate for some people can really be a barrier. I'm a lot less likely to go out if it's raining. So for me to have I'm going to do a walk every day no matter the weather is probably not going to work out. I have to, if I want to do something every day, then I have to think about what am I going to do if I can't go on my daily walk?
Yeah.
Right? If that's kind of a goal for me, then I would have to consider all of the things that get in the way of my doing that thing. So, and I would want goals that realistically work for me. And this is often why certain kinds of diets where you actually have to eliminate a whole food group don't work for people, because it's really hard to eat that way at restaurants or with friends. Or if you're, for instance, thinking of something like choosing to stop eating at say 4 or 5 in the afternoon, you've just eliminated a whole set of
plans,
get-togethers over
yeah.
dinner. Exactly. So you really want to think about what are the limitations of the plan and what are the limitations of you that are likely to get in the way of doing whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah.
Because we do have certain limitations within us, and it is important to work with rather than against ourselves. So
for sure.
Yeah. The other thing that I think we've both really experienced this is derailment.
Yeah.
So got any stories there for us?
I mean, yeah, getting derailed with things like this of setting goals is, I mean, that comes into what I was talking about with like being able to adapt to things and stuff like that. But there's some things like the last year when I got the gym membership, I was going fairly regularly, and then I got a cold that knocked me on my butt for 2 weeks. And I was still like kind of recovering from it for the third week, and I just didn't go back to the gym. That was enough that I just didn't think about it anymore. It wasn't something that I was like, oh, I'm going to be doing this weekend or anything like that. And it sucked. And I'm still paying for that gym membership.
I think that when we kind of get off track in that way, it's also what really interferes sometimes with being able to get back on track is that all or nothing thinking we were talking about. Mm-hmm. It's like if I have this value of a streak or having to do certain things every day, and then I am off track because illness or even vacations, right? Or Christmas, or if that's what you celebrate, or just holidays, vacations, anything like that. I said that, I'm sure, vacations. These things can make it difficult to get back into our routines, especially if they weren't as, it's not that our routines aren't, we can get habituated to all kinds of patterns, but it's easy to get off track once we're out of them for some time. You said, 2, nearly 3 weeks. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And we can also get disconnected from our body and how it may be felt to go to the gym. Mm-hmm. Because if it's been 2 or 3 weeks and it's something that's a physical activity, we might be more tired or more sore going back to it. Mm-hmm. And that can be a real deterrent from actually going through, oh God, I know this is going to hurt a bit, and all that kind of thing. So again, we don't have to go so hard, right? We can actually take it real slow and easy. But I think it's a really good example. I mean, it's easy enough in terms of eating habits to get back into previous habits over holidays or times with family, right? Where you're really longing to have, your aunt's cooking or something like that. So part of it is just making space for being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Instead of I failed because I haven't maintained this streak or some such thing. How can you just incorporate these natural shifts and ebbs and flows in your life with the change you're making?
Lurky Writer just pointed out in chat that this is very close to the question that he asked at the beginning of the show. And you know what? Since that was the one question we got, I'm going to pop that in here. The Lurking Writer says, question, how do you deal with the anxiety of returning to something we once did, but then took such a long break from? And I mean, with this one, it was very much like, Mitra and I love doing the show. We wanted to continue doing the show. And I there's definitely anxiety of getting back into the swing of things with it, of I had my workflow that was going on, and I'm taking time out of my week now to do this, so moving stuff around for that. But it comes down to the compelling reason. The compelling reason is we want to do the show. People really enjoy the show and get a lot out of it, and so we want to do it. That's our compelling reason. As far as anxiety goes, I mean, I'm just kind of used to getting on a stream now, so like, there's not as much anxiety about that. I'm like, oh yeah, we'll get on and talk about it. My computer froze in the middle of this. Like, it happens. Stuff happens. You just have to go with it.
I think that's a pretty good response there, and I would also add that one of the challenges with getting back into something that you valued, that maybe even you got good at or that was part of you, is you have to accept that when you get back into it, you're going to be clumsier than you used to be, especially if it's something where you developed a facility to cope with it.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm personally struggling with actually is riding my bike, because I have this great bike that I'm not using, and I have forgotten how good I used to be at coping with traffic. And I'm not now. I am not. I'm terrified at some level. So I have to kind of cope with that fear in order to actually do it. So I need some preparation.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been thinking about that. So sometimes we're not super good at listening to ourselves. We have all the great ideas, but it's a lot harder when it's you, yeah. I will say. But yeah, there's parts of oneself one may have disconnected from. In my case, I was pretty fearless. And I learned to be fearless. That didn't just come. It came with practice. It came with starting slow. It came with experience. When we talk about getting back to parts of ourselves or a habit or something that we loved or something that we used to do that we'd like, a resolution to do it, we have to acknowledge we're going to be clumsy. We're going to get it wrong, maybe in our minds.
Yeah.
We're not going to be the person we were before. If somebody, like if you, Treavor, weren't writing regularly and you had to get back into writing.
Oh, I've done that. It sucks. Oh,
yeah,
it's rough. Yeah.
But if you have a compelling reason, that helps with the sucky part,
mm-hmm.
but it doesn't take away the sucky part, which is the problem with the training montage sort of way of thinking about it, is it completely overlooks all of the actual work that you do have to do. And we have this idea that something we love, for instance, or value, or even are compelled or have placed compelling reasons in place, somehow it should be easier.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be. And that's part of preparation. The fact that it's not easier is why it's so important to make plans and to enlist support. To enlist helpful, not critical support, by the way.
I do have to say, we are we're getting towards the end of the show here because I think some time got taken up there by my computer freezing. But I do want to say the other two steps of this model that we've been talking about is maintenance and then relapse. And if you want to learn more about this, it was Prochaska's model of change. Easy Google search there for that. But yeah, we have to start wrapping up because we do have another show coming up after this. But hey, we're back. We did a show.
We're back.
I hope you all enjoyed it and got something out of it. Mitra, if people want to find you and what you do, where can they do so?
So I'm on the thing previously called Twitter, because I am super not fond of its everything there, but that's where you can at Mitra Jordan. I'm available there. I have a website, which is mitrajordan.com. There's a way to leave messages there if you should like to contact me. And in terms of the show, we expect to be back weekly, and we're really happy to be here.
As long as my computer stops freezing,
yeah. And if you have questions about those last two, maintenance and then relapse, by the way, is considered a natural part of the process. Mm-hmm. Just keep that in mind. If you have questions about that or about change models, by all means, we could do a whole other episode on it, I'm sure.
It's true.
In the future.
I think this is our first revisited episode, so we'll do more revisits on other topics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say you can find me on those dystopian social medias at the Treavor. There's an A hiding in there. And hey, you can find me in Idle Champions because I write for that. So if you're playing that right now, you might be playing something that I wrote. And yeah, that is gonna do it for this week's episode. So until next week, take care of yourself.